Women Who Own It podcast spotlights women business owners who are pioneers in their field, setting trends, blazing trails, and creating game-changing innovations. Brought to you by WeBank, the largest certifier of women-owned businesses in the U.S. and a leading advocate for women business owners and entrepreneurs. And me, Allison Maslin. I've been a business owner for the last 35 years. I'm the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of the book Scale or Fail. So join our bold community of women who built it, grew it, and own it. I'll see you on the show. Welcome to Women Who Own It podcast. This is a show all about women business leaders, brought to you by women business leaders. We're also brought to you in partnership with WeBank and the Target Corporation. And we happen to be at the WeBank conference in Atlanta live, and it is our first time getting together since 2019. Now, I'm Allison Maslin. I am your host. I'm the founder of Pinnacle Global Network, where we mentor business owners around the world to grow and scale companies that change the world. And talk about world changers. Our guest today, I'm so excited to be doing this in person. Our guest is Angelique Rewers, founder of Bold House. She is the CEO and founder of Bold House, and she helps small business owners land big corporate clients such as IBM, Intel, HP, PayPal, AT&T, Marriott, Chevron, and even Major League Baseball. Oh my goodness. Having successfully navigated all sides of the corporate buying table for more than 2 decades, Angelique provides business training and advice to thousands of small businesses across 72 countries worldwide. That is amazing. On how to secure 5, 6, and even 7-figure corporate contracts. Okay, we're talking $1 million contracts. She has been called the undisputed champion at helping small businesses land big clients by Inc. magazine. And she's a dear friend of mine. Angelique, welcome to Women Who Own It.
Thank you. And could we have a better backdrop than this, back together again?
Here we are, everybody. Look at this. The conference is just getting underway. All of the booths are being put together, and it is going to be busy with thousands of people starting tomorrow. This is so exciting.
I'm so excited. This is really good. It feels really good to be here.
It does feel really good to be here. And that is one of the big perks of being a certified women-owned business, is being part of this and getting together with everybody. There's nothing like it. But I want to dive into your story and all of the amazing things that you help business owners do. So you started in the corporate environment, and you left due to burnout, frustration, and just not enough career opportunities at the time. And what was that time? Can you take us back to that time?
So, you know, it's funny because I watch the news now. We're going through the Great Resignation. Lots of people are having the same awakening that I had way back in 2006. But I was really lucky. I actually had an amazing 10 years in corporate. I worked inside of Fortune 100 organizations, and I happened to have roles that always put me in proximity with the C-suite. So I was always working, 50 feet from the CEO's office or the CFO's office or the CIO's office. And so often I was the one involved in, if not leading, the transformational initiatives that were going on inside of organizations. At times I was even the person handling the financial communications of the corporation. And so because of that, Allison, I was in a position to hire a lot of outside experts and consultants and service providers coming in that were supporting our Fortune 100, Fortune 200 companies with transformation. So on one hand, it was this incredible breeding ground to just be spending your days with such close proximity to senior level executives, but it was also exhausting, right? It was exhausting, and it was very demanding. And so the moment for me that I think some people can relate to is we were going through a merger, and we were getting ready to make this big announcement, and our team had to work 72 hours without sleep. And I had bronchitis, and 103-degree fever. And it's one point, I'm lying on the ground in my office. I can't even get up, and someone's stepping over me to get to a document, and I'm thinking, I'm going to have to make a change in my life. I'm going to have to make a change in my life.
Yes, so, I know that moment. That moment. Do you know that moment?
That moment. So that was my moment, looking up at the ceiling saying, but I had this incredible experience to leave my job with. And so the first thing that I did was I actually started a consulting company. That was all I knew. I did not know this world. I did not know the small business owner world. So I started a consulting company. And I started selling to corporations. And little by little, women business owners started asking me, can you help me get the kinds of clients that you are getting? And so that's really where it all started.
And what was that transition like? Because, you know, I've talked to a lot of people that have started business over the years coming from the corporate world. And I often find it sometimes even harder to make that shift than for someone that has no job and almost living in their car. I hate to say it like that, but it's just because it's so structured and so different than running your own company.
Oh my gosh. So, you know, for me, the biggest shift, and the expression I use, is moving from gold stars to gold bars. Because in the corporate setting, you're rewarded for hard work. You're rewarded for putting in the hours. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, no one's going to build a monument in your name because you worked a lot of hours. As a business owner, it comes down to your bottom line, your profitability as a company. So you can work really hard and feel like, but I'm checking everything off my to-do list, and so why am I not making the money? And there is this mental shift, and I know you see this with your clients too, that you really, when you're leaving corporate to start a business, it is no longer about just doing a good job on your tasks. If that doesn't have a direct impact on your business generating revenue, then it doesn't matter. So you have to move from going after the gold stars to the gold bars.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because it really is about sales at the end of the day, which is something you specialize in, obviously, and I want to talk about that. But it really is a big shift, right? Because we want our branding to look good, you know, we want to say all the right things. But at the end of the day, if you don't have a profitable company, you don't have a company.
You don't have a company. You actually have a big pile of debt is what you have. You have beautiful marketing and beautiful branding and a big pile of debt. You know, I think a lot of business owners that first year make the mistake of staying in a place of, I'm not ready yet, and they keep creating more projects to do instead of getting into a cash flow positive revenue generating place. And that's really where you have a business. And so we always say to our clients, don't worry about anything until you've made that first dollar. Because when you make that first dollar, everything shifts. And I think that's true too for each of the, you know, you were talking about the size contracts. We have clients now going after multi-8-figure contracts. And to watch the business owner go from going after, say, a multi-7 to a multi-8, that's another big shift. And so we have these various, I feel like light switches we have to turn on, these milestones, and you do think differently every time one of those light switches flips on.
And it is, you really have to go through the motion.
You do.
Right? You can think about it and be getting ready to get ready to get ready, but you're never really going to learn until you actually do it. And so how has, I mean, all the training that you had in the corporate world, I mean, you were right there in the trenches and working with the C-level executives and all these Fortune 100 companies. How has that shaped the approach of working with the corporate clients?
I was actually, it's funny, I was talking to somebody about this over lunch today. You know, look, there are so many companies out there that do sales training, and a lot of the people who go into sales training are folks who were the salespeople themselves or people who came out of, say, purchasing or procurement. But it is a very different perspective when you are in a boardroom and the senior executives are discussing or arguing, as the case may be, over a particular purchase or a particular direction. And the discussions that happen at that level, whether it's the EVPs of business units or it's the CIO or the CFO, those discussions are very, very different than what you typically hear in sales training or advice from people who've kind of been in other roles in an organization. So for me, the biggest thing is really coming at it first and foremost from how those senior level executives really think and how they really behave behind closed doors.
Right.
Because I had the advantage of I was young and impressionable, but I got, to see it from the first year out of college for 10 years, what that was really like.
And what they want.
And what they want, and what they don't want,
Yes.
and what really pisses them off. And then the other side of it was I hired hundreds of outside experts, well over 350, but the more interesting stories are the thousands of software companies, consultants, vendors that I didn't hire, and all the mistakes that they made. And the biggest mistake that they would make was a failure to understand the true complexity and challenge that even if I wanted to buy from them, what as a decision maker inside of an organization you're really up against. Because everybody has their own priorities. Priorities are shifting every day.
Yeah.
Everybody owns a different piece of a particular problem. And so I think people come in, they ask ridiculous questions like, if I were able to show you how to solve this problem, like when can we get this done? And that really just shows how little you empathize with the decision maker, how little you empathize with their challenge that they have and the realities of their day-to-day work environment. And so I think that has really shaped what we do because we take what we call a decision maker centric approach. So it's about really empathizing first and foremost. And I'll tell you, everyone knows when you're on the other side of the buy, when you're the buyer, when you're the one deciding, you can feel in your bones if the person who's selling to you just all they can think about is making the sale.
Right.
Or if they're like, I totally get you and let's have a real conversation. And you cannot fake it.
Yeah.
You cannot fake it.
Yeah, that their heart is really there.
If their heart is really there.
Yeah, it reminds me of the book, The Go-Giver.
Yes.
Yes,
I love that book.
Yeah,
Yeah.
really, because showing up, like, how can I serve you?
Right.
And support you.
It's the same. It's the same come from. It's that same genuine come from. Now, it's not that you don't have a job to do, as whether it's you're a women business enterprise or
Right.
otherwise. It's not that you don't have a job to do and you're there to sell, but if your lens is so myopic that it's just about getting the deal done versus really figuring out how to help that decision maker to buy from you if you can solve their problem and to really understand and ask them the questions about how even to help them build the business case.
Yes.
Who are the people internally that they need to get on board and how can you support them in that process versus calling them, on a day their company put out a press release and the sky is falling and now you want to know when you can set up a sales meeting.
Yeah.
It's that breakdown that happens and every decision maker has a thermostat for that.
Yeah, and I would, you're building that connection and rapport because sales really is all about relationships.
It is.
Right?
Yeah.
So you're approaching it from that point. So, so speaking of approaching from sales, and obviously this is what you do, and you are you are one of the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And so if you're giving advice to one of your clients or to a woman-owned business who is saying, okay, I really kind of feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. I've been trying to get into corporate. I've been trying to build these relationships, and it's just such a slow go. What are some of the steps that you might take them through?
I think the first is to really, Allison, look at how much engagement are you actually having with corporate decision makers. Because I'm going to be honest with you, visibility is cheap. Visibility is cheap. You can throw money at a magazine and get ads. You can, erect a booth at a conference. You can, have billboards. You can send out direct mail. Visibility is actually cheap. What's hard, but what is valuable, is engagement with decision makers. And so the first thing that we do is say, how can you create a compelling reason for decision makers to engage with your team even when they're not in a buy now place? You know, at any given time, your ideal target customers, only about 1 to 3% of them are in a ready now place to buy from you. So if you're just waiting for that 1 to 3% to talk to you, you're missing out on laying groundwork with 97% of your target market. And because decision makers are waiting so long now in the buying process to even have a conversation with you, you're missing out on a tremendous amount of business. So the very first thing we want to look at is, how are we going to create a platform where you can actually engage with corporate decision makers and have conversations with them that are valuable to them, even when they don't want to buy from you. And sadly, I don't think enough people are interested in putting in the work to do that. But those who do position themselves for really large procurements because they've already built trust and they've built rapport, and more importantly, they've built market intelligence that none of their competitors have. And that's when I feel like it's such a game changer in your business. Everything changes when you have that engagement.
Yeah, you know, I think that as business owners, it's so easy to hide behind social media and all of those things. And I just saw a statistic, and I don't have the exact numbers on me, but the difference between the digital sales and conversational sales, like real engagement kinds of sales, is billions and billions of dollars more.
Billions more.
Are done more. You know, people often think it's more digital, but it's not. It actually isn't, especially the bigger dollar contracts.
It's all about, you know, we have said, the first time I said this on stage, I took the air out of the room, but back in 2013, I was out in Scottsdale, we were doing our annual conference, and I walked out on the stage and I said, content is not king. Content is a commodity. Conversations are king. And everyone thought, you know, that I killed Santa Claus or something when I said that. I would love to see that statistic. It doesn't surprise me in the least. What I do know is that when you really look at your sales as a business owner, 80% of your revenue or more will always come from a conversational sale. So, you know, you're putting all this time and energy often into digital, whereas 80% is going to come from the conversational sale. But it's about having it even when you're not doing a sales pitch, even when the prospect isn't ready to buy, even when they're not asking for a proposal or a quote or anything. It's about the conversations happening way, way earlier. And as someone who still today is a decision maker, I mean, as an Inc. 5000 company, we buy a lot of stuff, right? And who do I buy from? I buy from the people who created a relationship with me long before I was ready to buy. And I think as a business owner, if you study your own buying behavior, it will teach you more about how to sell than any course, is really looking at your own buying behavior and then saying, wow, look at how I behaved in that. Now, if I replicate that and imagine all of my clients behaving the same way, what am I doing? Why am I doing it this way when this is how I personally behave?
Right, and what impressed me?
Right.
What annoyed me?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right.
What annoys you? Like, if it annoys you, then why, you know, really do that to your clients, right? And so I think you can learn so much by just looking at your own buying behavior. Again, Allison, more than sales training.
Yeah. Wow, this is so fantastic. And so what would you say are the top 2 to 3 trends that are really reshaping the corporate buying process today?
Yeah, I think the first thing, and we're going to talk about this in my session here, but for those who are not here, one of the big things that's shaping corporate today is there's actually a big fear factor. 72% of CEOs fear losing their jobs in 2022. And so if you think about that energy permeating the C-suite, what I know about corporate is that that energy will trickle down. So decision makers are really in a place right now where they don't want to make a bad decision about what they buy. So a big thing that you have to do right now, and really I would think for the next decade, is take a stronger position, a more intentional position about how you take risk off of your client and you remove that risk. And we're not doing a good job of that holistically as small businesses and mid-market companies. So one of the things we tell our clients is, look, study the actual risks, because you're going to get into a sales conversation and a decision maker is going to say to you, we're really concerned about X, or we're really concerned about Y. But that might just be a gut feeling. But if you look at the data, that's not why those projects fail, or that's not why those procurements fail. So the first thing is to really know the data. Like, what are the actual risks, not the ones that people think are the risks.
Right, or the story they've created.
The story they've created, exactly. But what are the real risks? And then build and brand a risk mitigation strategy to solve the real risks for your clients. So that's going to be a big one for the next decade. I think the other really big one that we're going to continue to see is really the vendors and the service providers who help your clients make sense of what's happening in the market and make sense of the choices. So here's a crazy statistic. I was recently up in New York City for a closed door meeting. Unilever, Hilton, Harley Davidson, Chobani, all of these companies were up there. And one of the senior executives of one of the largest industry associations in the country was in the room. And she shared with me that there are over 300,000 health and wellness apps for employees. 300,000.
Wow.
Now, if you're a senior vice president of HR, or you are the head of employee wellness for a corporation, and vendors are coming at you about health and wellness and apps, there are 300,000 to choose from. You can't, as the head of health and wellness, ever evaluate 300,000 apps. Like, if you started now, you'd be done in 2050. Right? So the vendors that help their clients make sense of the choices and narrow things down and say, look, at the end of the day, there's 3 buckets of choices. And here are the pros and the cons, and here's why you would want to go this direction. The vendors and the service providers who become the sense makers for their clients will always earn an invitation to come back and talk to them again.
Which ties back to what we were talking about, how can we serve you?
That's right. That's right. It's all about, so that to me right now, both the risk taking and the sense making, those are really the mindsets and the come from and the energy you want to have from 2022 for the foreseeable future. Like, that is where you need to be right now.
Why do you think a lot of business owners, especially if they don't come from the corporate background, maybe they want to work with the corporations, but they really struggle? They may have had some rejection, or they're afraid to face the gatekeeper. What's the shift that needs to happen there?
I love that. I think the first mindset shift that has to happen is realizing that they're not hiring you for being an expert in corporate. They're hiring you for being an expert in the thing that you know, because they're not an expert in that. So I think the first is just really getting comfortable with the fact that in your field, you know more usually than the organization. And that's okay to admit that, to know that and embrace that. That's the first thing. I think the other thing, Allison, is that there are so many resources out there to learn about corporate and really get a sense of what's going on. And a lot of them are fun. I mean, you can go to conferences, head out to Las Vegas, go to a mega conference for an industry, turn on Netflix or Hulu and watch some of these amazing docu-series of, the WeWork story or the Uber story. There are phenomenal podcasts. There are podcasts that big brands do. There are podcasts that Poppy Harlow does, where she interviews CEOs of major companies. There are so many ways to really indoctrinate yourself and get a sense of what corporate is really all about. And there are some fun ways to do that. And I think the third thing is sit down and have conversations with people. Don't be afraid to pick up the phone and ask. In our community at Bold House, a lot of people get started because they come into our community and they bench for other people. So they work as subcontractors to other people who are already working with corporate, and they learn the ropes by flying basically, second chair, co-pilot. And I think sometimes that's okay to be like, go bench for someone and be a part of their engagements, part of the work that they're doing, and learn it from that side. And there are really great women business owners out there who need team to come on and do that. So that can be a good option.
Joint venture.
Oh, yeah,
which is
for sure.
so great.
So
And
great.
big believer. We do that a lot in our company. And what happens a lot in these conferences, they get to know each other. And what's so great about being a certified women-owned business, because you get to make these amazing collaborations here. What about the business owners that have mainly been going direct to consumer, but they do have a product that really could just be tweaked and could be selling to corporate? What are your thoughts on that? Because they could be missing out on so much.
Stepping over the dollars to get to the dimes. You know, you look at the cost of acquisition of consumers versus the cost of acquisition of a corporation. You know, these are the big fish for a reason. So I think the first thing is to do your market research and really understand, you know, what the angle is, what companies. A lot of folks don't understand that not all which companies are going to be interested in working with them. So I think that's important to do your homework and understand that. But look, I mean, if you can sell to one company and replicate all of the sales that you're getting off of your website yourself, that's a pretty nice shift in the business model. I think there's nothing wrong with direct to consumer. And in fact, what we're seeing in the market right now is a delayering effect. So you see all these subscription boxes out there and all these direct to consumer products. You hear them advertised on, you know, Sirius radio and things like that. But then you add, to me, it's not an either or, it's a yes and.
A yes
and. And I think that's what you want to really look at is the yes and. And you really don't need that many corporations to get started. Sometimes it might make sense to hit mid-market first. Depending on what you sell, you've got to make sure that you can deliver on a big order if it's a product based. Service is much easier to scale.
Right.
You know, service is easy to scale. Product is not as easy to scale.
Yeah.
And so you really have to make sure that you have the infrastructure, if you're on the product space, that you can truly scale. And so you've got to be smart about that. But to me, it is no longer in either direction, an either or. We're in a yes and world. And I think it's really important that you're looking at that.
Yeah. I love that. It doesn't have to be exclusivity one or the other. And there are a lot of dollars sitting there. And that is, you know, obviously one of the things we do, helping companies scale on the other side to be able to have the capacity to do what you're doing.
Yes.
And then the other market too, just to touch upon this, any of you that do government contracting, I feel, because with the government contract, you get this contract and it could be several $1 million, and then you're set for 3-4 years, but then you don't really have continued cash coming in. I think, of course, you know, connecting and working with Angelique to, you know, I feel like if you are doing those contracts for corporate, you could take the same thing, tweak it for the private market.
And vice versa. You know, most of our clients work so our clients work with colleges and universities. They work with nonprofits and NGOs. They work with state, local, federal government. They work with corporate. They work with mid-market, and they work with small enterprise. And so people are like, well, how can they work with all of those? And at the end of the day, these organizations, the psychology of the decision maker is largely the same. Obviously, there's nuances with government because you've got the procurements. But other than that, you know, you're dealing with organizations. All of the same sort of human dynamics go on in all of those environments. And if you do sell something to corporate, you should be looking at mid-market. You know, people overlook mid-market all the time. Mid-market is where all the growth in the United States, all the GDP growth is all driven by mid-market. All of the growth when we see our payrolls expand and the number of employees on payroll expand in the country, it's all from mid-market. So you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss the big companies. And I think colleges and universities get overlooked, and I don't know why, because they have, you know, tremendous buying power as well. So to me, this is a yes and market. And whether we head into a recession soon or we don't, the more diversity that you have in your client portfolio, the more you're going to be able to weather. I mean, one of the reasons it's great to have government contracts is they tend to stick during a downturn. So do college. In fact, colleges and universities, when everybody gets laid off, they all go enroll in colleges and universities, and so they actually do better. And there's certainly recession-proof industries. You want to have some of those in your business, especially if you are looking to scale.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm glad you bring that up, and we're going to be wrapping this this up in a second, but I also believe, and my guess is that you probably too, and even when the economy changes or potentially dips down, there's so much opportunity, right?
So much.
Because you have a lot of companies pulling back. So this is not the time you want to pull back. This is the time you want to lean in, and honestly where some of the greatest wealth is made when the economy starts to shift.
Absolutely, always.
So I think exciting things to come.
Yeah.
And so being a certified women-owned business, this is the 25th year of WeBank.
Wow.
25 years. And so how has WeBank supported your business?
Yeah, so a few ways. I think the first thing for us, and why I recommend to everyone to get certified, is you can never have too many doors into a corporation. So by being certified, it gives you one more door to knock on, because the supplier diversity folks, I mean, they are our champions. And so to have that door to knock on is so important. But I'll tell you, even if I'm not talking to someone in supplier diversity, even if I'm talking to someone outside of, say, the Fortune 1000, the fact that we have that certification really, I think, first and foremost, adds credibility to our brand, right? Because it's clear that we are a true enterprise. And so there's that piece of it. And I also think it allows us to better connect with other women business owners. And we are definitely stronger together, right? When we collaborate, we form strategic alliances, we form joint ventures, we are subcontractors for one another, we make strategic introductions for one another. And so I think it's the power of the network is really important. But I do think it's the market credibility, and I don't think that's something that should be overlooked. We look at between 2020 and 2022, you look at the amount of applications that have been filed to start a business. And there are all these people coming into the marketplace. Those of us who've been doing this for a while, those of us who have that street credibility, because that track record of results and track record of success, we really want to stand out in the market today. There is so much noise, so many people are leaving their jobs to start businesses. So you have to have every advantage to distinguish your brand, to build relationships, to get that seat at the table, to have the Rolodex of the relationship. So to me, I think I think it's a no-brainer.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this has been absolutely incredible. So how can people reach you, learn more about you, Angelique?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is to head to our website, which is boldhaus.com, and that's spelled BOLDHAUS. Those who are in interior design will kind of get the sort of play on house there, and the design element of that. But boldhaus.com is the best place. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn, because I think I'm the only Angelique Rewers on all of LinkedIn. And we have some great resources on our website. We also have an annual conference where a lot of folks come and learn our sales strategies for getting in front of corporate decision makers. So that's a great way to come and meet me in person.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, you are definitely going to want to do that. And is there any last minute advice you'd like to leave?
Yeah, I'll leave everyone with kind of where we started, which is that conversations are what create cash flow in your business. So make sure you have a conversation forward strategy in your business, because that is where all the growth, all the market intelligence, all the impact happens in the conversations.
Wow. Well, there you have it, everyone. What a fantastic show. Women Who Own It. So fun to be here at the conference, to be live. And if you're not here now, we definitely hope to see you next time at the WeBank conference. And get out there and elevate yourself, because you are worth it. Bye, everybody.